Welcome to the Hacking Your Health podcast with Ben Canning and Dave Kennedy. Two guys heading out to hack body, mind, business, and beyond. We are here to provide a single source, bullshit-free guide to understanding your body and how you can live better for longer.
Yo, welcome back. Good to see everybody. I'm Ben Canning.
And I'm Dave Kennedy.
And this is Hacking Your Health podcast.
This is a special podcast, right? Because this will be aired in the first week of 2022. So this will be the new year set of Hacking Your Health, right?
It will. I mean, they're all special in their own right, but yeah, it'll be the first of it'll be the first of the new year. So happy New Year, everybody, I guess, in the future.
Happy New Year. We should get some champagne and celebrate right now.
I got tequila. Does that count?
There you I don't think I can start tequila this early.
No, I had too much tequila at the weekend. Anyway, so how are you? What's going on?
No, things are good. Everything's been great. I did some orange cereal this morning, and I've been looking forward to the podcast today. It's been kind of a light week, which is good. Kind of work's kind of chill. Everybody's still out of the office, and just more so catching up on things. I got a nap in, which is great. So, going to get my lift in this afternoon, right after this, actually. It's legs day, the best day ever. So, although, I think you and I agree on this. Best day for me is push. I love push days. Just,
push because of how you feel. Like you feel jacked coming out of it. Leg day, you come out of it and feel like something's just sucked the soul from you.
Yeah. Dude, the last leg day I did was it last week. I think I texted you. I'm like, listen, I'm done. Like I can't go anymore. I'm wrecked. I'm just gonna go literally collapse and chill for 5 days. And it's funny because I went and got a sports massage done for the first time, and Aaron got me gift cards for Christmas. It's this place down the street, and the lady was super strong, which is great. And so she put me through the ringer, and let me tell you, it was painful. I wanted to tap out 10 different times, but I'm like, I'm not tapping out. But what she kept saying, which I started getting annoyed with, was like, man, your muscles are really jacked up. Like, you need to stretch more. And she must have said that probably 30 times. I'm like, yeah, I got it. Okay. I lift every single day. My muscles go through the ringer every single day. I understand that they are in knots and they're pissed at me right now. And but guess what? They're growing. So that's all that matters.
I think there's a lot to be said for that. I'm an advocate of you should probably take some more time off, but at the same time, without me standing there actually physically getting you to take time off, I doubt it's actually going to happen.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. So, listen, 6 days I think is a fair amount.
6 days is a lot of training.
It is. And
plus 3 Orange Theory, plus 14,000 steps a day. It's a lot.
It's a lot. But my body, I'm listening to my body. It can handle it. It's not hurt right now. It feels great. I feel strong.
Listen to your body, just not the girl that did the sports massage.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you go back for another one, you're going to go someone else.
Well, what's interesting about what she said, which I was interested in, is she was like, you should stretch before you work out and after. And I started doing some analysis on the studies around that, and actually stretching before might be detrimental to your lifting. Now when I say stretching, I'm not saying you shouldn't do active warm-ups and dynamic stretching, which are good for your muscles to warm them up and to get them kind of flexible and things like that. But actual stretching of stretching your muscles and things like that actually there's a lot of studies that it creates more proneness to injury, which I thought was really interesting. I hadn't seen that before. After is the big important piece.
Yeah, I've not been stretching now consecutively for about 8 years of training, so I've done all right. For me, you know this, and I've said this before. My warm up consists of just doing low reps, low weight, and build up to the working set of the actual movement, because then you get the muscle that you're trying to move warmed up in the movement that you're trying to do. So that's my go-to for stretching.
And that's how I like when you program my lifts. You have 2 really high rep, lower weight warm up sets to kind of get those muscles kind of in the groove, and then from there, you start getting into the heavier sets as you start to go through that, and that's always worked for me as well. I think the biggest thing for me is starting to incorporate more stretching afterwards to focus on my mobility. Aaron even talked about potentially even doing like a yoga class or something like that throughout the week. So we'll see how that goes. And I've never done yoga before, and I always like
yoga is hard as shit. Yoga is hard.
Everybody that does it tells me it's fucking ridiculously hard. So.
I did whenever I know I've spoken a couple of times about whenever I hurt my shoulder, whenever I was drunk and tried to do handstand. I went to Bikram yoga, which is like a heated room. So the room's like a sauna. It's like yeah, so it's like 37, 38 degrees, obviously Celsius. I don't know what the transition is. But genuinely, so the room gets locked for 90 minutes. So you're lying there to like sort of acclimatize to the room. And then the instructors like stand up, and literally within about 90 seconds, you're dripping in sweat. And there's like guys in front of you just standing in Speedos because it's so warm. But genuinely, the hardest 90-minute workouts that I've ever done. I did that for about 8 weeks. It really, really did help my shoulder, like actually being able to stretch it out properly. And obviously the heat in the room helps the muscles and whatever else. But yeah, I mean, it's hard as shit. Like, it's hard.
Yeah, I just want to get better at stretching and mobility. That's my biggest thing. You know me. Mobility has always been a problem with my movements and things like that. So always just trying to figure out ways to get better. So that's my 2022 New Year's resolution, is to do at least a 5-minute warm up with dynamic stretching, and then potentially cold showers, which is not going to happen. So I'm already breaking that 2022 resolution. It's not even 2022 yet. So
I'm actually, whenever we get into the topic that we're going to talk about, I'm going to actually pick on you for that. So we'll deal with that down the line. Yeah, not that you've asked, but everything's good with me.
I was just about to ask. Okay, so well, I didn't know if you had something to add to that, and then I was going to ask, hey, how are you doing afterwards? But fine, if you want to be like that, that's fine. That's fine. You want to call me out?
No, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. One thing I will say is, now that I'm sort of back into a routine of training properly, albeit not in a training facility that I particularly enjoy, I feel infinitely better. Like, you're probably the same now, that I have this sort of attachment to, I feel good when I train, like it's a part of who I am, and I'm not that person if I'm not doing those things, especially obviously given, what I do for a job or whatever. So I feel infinitely better. Work for me this week, I sort of said that I'm going to take a bit of a chill week. I'm obviously going to do, I had a couple of calls with you, with Chris. I was on a call with Dan earlier on, just catching up with everybody. I'm obviously going to do check-ins and stuff like that, but over and above, I'm going to sort of take this week to sort of chill and just sort of wind into the new year. One of my resolutions for next year will be to do more mobility. I said this to you on Monday when we spoke. Like, I used to do 10 to 15 minutes in the morning as part of my morning routine, and it's just been sacked off. I will continue to do cold showers, and I will keep that as part of my day-to-day life.
You're a masochist.
It's funny, right? Okay, so today we want to talk about mindset. We want to revisit mindset, because obviously people are in that sort of headspace of new year, new me. 2022 is my year. I'm going to fucking complete it, whatever else. And I think, as we sort of said before, mindset is the first pillar, and it's the first thing that you need to deal with. And I've been doing a lot of listening to podcasts and reading and whatever else. And I think there's a lot of things to be said, or a lot of things that tips-wise that we can give to help people sort of... It's easy for us to say work on your mindset, but what does that actually look like for people? So I think that's what we will get into today.
When we started going through the initial pillars, when we first started this podcast, the mindset component, I think, was the biggest challenge for me starting off, right? And that's because, you're literally changing human behavior and habits. And if you're in the security industry and you know about social engineering and you know about phishing and all of those things that happen with people that you're going after, changing human patterns and behavior is extremely difficult to do. Whether that's, getting somebody that is stuck in the way of doing single factor authentication and you're moving to multi-factor authentication, it's a challenge to change anybody's behavior one way or another. So mindset is one of those things to me that is by far probably the most fundamental portion of this and what we discuss about. And that's, I think, why, going over this, getting into the new year is really important, because we're going to get into, hey, what does it take to shift your mind towards this type of lifestyle? And that's why we talk about no bullshit diets, no, colon coffee fasts, whatever the fuck is out there, to lose, 20 pounds in 3 days. This is not something that you can rush into. This is not something that you should expect to be what you want to look like day 1 or day 30 or day 60. It took you years to get to the place that you're at right now where you're unhappy. How do you get to the point to where you're going to be happy with yourself, your confidence, everything else? And that all comes from the mindset piece of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you touched on a good point there. Like, it's taken you 20 years to get to the place that you're at now, unhappy with your body and whatever else. On what fucking planet do you think that you're going to get out of that in 6 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is?
Yeah.
And accepting that, I think, is probably a big part of the mindset. Having the mindset of, this is going to take me a long fucking time, but it's going to give me a better quality of life and understanding sort of what the benefits of it are, rather than just being like, oh, I need to do this crash diet because I have to go to someone's wedding at the weekend or whatever the fucking excuse is. And I actually think, it's funny that you're talking about, people in social engineering in the industry and whatever else. I think there's a lot of analogies that we can use that will help people relate to what we're talking about. So obviously, that side of it. I am not in any way, shape or form going to let on that I know what it is that actually goes on in terms of cybersecurity and what you guys do. But if we start from a very basic level in terms of your mindset, I think the first place to start is understanding why you are the way you are. So if we relate that to, and please don't make fun of me here, let's just see if we can get it out in terms of analogies, okay? So if you're coding something, you have to put that together, you write the code to get a certain outcome, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So all of us, every experience, every life event, everything that's happened to us up until this point, in a sense, is the way that we have been coded, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So if we understand 100%. that, then that is, the first place that we can start. You get people and you actually said this the last week, you said that you always thought you weren't a morning person. That was a narrative that you told yourself. So for X amount of years, you had told yourself that you weren't a morning person. Once we sort of changed a bit of perspective on that, you now get up in the morning, albeit you're not delighted about it, but you're ready to go. So technically, in a sense, you have shifted your mindset and your belief in yourself as to being a morning person.
Absolutely. That's good. So far, you got me.
So far, so good?
So far, good. So far, so good.
Okay. Cool. Right. So understanding how you're put together and why you are the way you are, I think, is the sort of often overlooked. It's not just a case of, oh, I need to change my mindset, which, okay, yes, you probably do. But to do that, you need to get an understanding of why you are the way you are in the first place. And something that often comes up, and, again, we've touched on this a couple of times, I think a lot of our beliefs in ourselves, or a lot of our beliefs around food and a lot of relationships with food and everything else have come from growing up whenever we were younger. Food, family, good times, bad times, it generally sort of resonates around food. And I think it was Will Smith quoted this, and I could be wrong, but basically he said that it's not your fault that you are the way you are, you think the way you do, but sure as fuck is your responsibility to change it if you want to change. And I'm pretty sure he did say it exactly that way, but I mean, I don't think he's listening, so we'll be fine. So it's not your fault that you think the way you do, that you have the relationships with people, yourself, with food that you do, but it's your responsibility now that you're an adult to change them.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of reasons, complexity wise, why we're in certain habits that we have, whether it's, like you mentioned, the way that you were raised. So, I had really amazing parents. My mom, my dad, they split at an early age, and, we were a lower income family, and my parents always worked all the time. My mom held 2 or 3 jobs at a time. So, she'd come home at like 6 from her one job, and then she'd be, doing typing and things like that for translation for doctors, in the nighttime. So, I never saw her much. I never saw my dad much. Don't get me wrong. They're always great families, but they're busting their ass to make a living for us. And so food was always one of those things that was like, just get it from either fast food or get it from, the freezer and in a prepared meal. There's not much cooking going on. That changed a little bit as I got older, into like 16, 17 years. My stepmom cooked a lot. Which was good. But, my food at that point had become an issue, right? So I ate all the time. I ate unhealthy. I was probably packing in 5,000, 6,000 calories. I was obese already by the time I was 16 years old. And so, there's a lot of reasons why we get to a certain point. Some of us, though, might have only happened, recently where, we put a bigger focus on, work and family and less on ourselves and our bodies and our nutrition and things that go along with it. So there's just a lot of reasons why this happens. But to add to Ben's analogy on the coding aspects of things, the way that we can fix this and change this is by doing, very minor releases of the code that change us over time, right? So more of that agile workflow development where we're basically doing very big or very small sprints to change little things or habits in ourselves, little minor versions of releases, either bug fixes or things like that to actually address some of the underlying core issues and to add features and functionality as we go through, and being able to make small, tiny incremental changes to steer our habits in a different direction that is sustainable long term. And that's why when you talk about mindset, this isn't something that, we're going to be like, hey, here's this book here. This isn't a book. This is a cable. But here's this book here. And this is going to tell you exactly what you need to do for the next 7 weeks to get that body that you want to, right? It's not going to happen like that. This is something where you're like, okay, I'm going to make a commitment for the rest of my life. Now, I'm not saying I'm going to make a commitment like a lot of people do for New Year's resolutions and say, hey, I'm going to work out in the gym 7 days a week. I'm going to do Orange Theory 7 days a week and work out at the gym as well. I'm going to only eat 100 calories on top of that. And then I'm going to do sprints, during my breaks. And I'm going to do 5,000 push-ups. And I'm also going to, you're going to overload yourself with things, right? This is a gradual progression. And it's what's great about this is that any small change that you make may be small here, but as time grows, it has monumental impacts on your overall health, body, longevity, and everything else that goes along with it. So you're starting off here, but that curve starts to increase over time as you go along. And if you're looking on the website or on the YouTube page, you can actually see my hands move up in an animation that fully explains this whole rationale of thoughts. So it's one of those things that, listen, you got to get yourself into the right mindset first. And food is a struggle. Ben, I don't know if you probably don't have the same relationship with food as I do. Food is always a struggle. Even right now, it's a struggle. Like, we were at one point in time, 3,800 calories. And then, I'm down to 2,800 calories right now on a cutting phase. And, that's 1,000 less calories that I'm eating a day. And it's difficult for me to eat 1,000 less calories a day now. And it doesn't hurt. It's not painful. But I have to be very conscious of it as I'm going through, so that the things that I've put into place in my life allow me to control that aspect of things where I have full control of my body and my health.
Yeah, I mean, for me, growing up with food, my mum always worked in a restaurant, so I was always around fresh food. I was always around good food, and I have never, I guess, really had a negative relationship with food. I've always really enjoyed food. I've always really enjoyed cooking. I think I've mentioned this before. I sort of see cooking as my creative outlet. So I say this sometimes that, when I finish my work day, I'll go and cook, and that's me sort of like psychologically winding down from work, and I enjoy the process of cooking and putting food together and things like that. So I've always enjoyed food on that front, but it's always been like fresh. It's always been homemade. Like I've been very lucky in that fact that I've always been around really, really good food. From the sort of calories perspective, and actually, something that you touched on there is you've put measures in place in terms of like what you have to do to consciously eat 1,000 less calories. Now, everybody needs to be aware that I just didn't overnight decide to take 1,000 calories off you. Like, it's been a gradual sort of drop by 100 calories here and there over the past couple of weeks and whatever else. I think that sort of leads us into, the power of your environment and how that can affect your mind as well. And I actually tweeted about it last night, about how everything that you absorb and everything that you're around, you listen to, read, whatever it is, controls your narrative of your reality. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is, over Christmas I was with my family, and I was talking about fucking cryptocurrency and NFTs, and like I could tell that my family were looking at me like, what the fuck are you talking about? But for me, it's all I see on social media. Now, obviously, it's programmed that because I'm reading these things and interacting with these things, and I see more and more of these things, so I'm literally creating that narrative of seeing more of those things, which is fine for me because I'm into it, and that's whatever else. But there's a lot of, and I think you actually touched on it last night as well, there's a lot of negative shit on social media that people see, and they fall into this sort of like hamster wheel of reading this negative shit, and that sort of consumes them in that way. So whenever I talk about environment, I don't literally physically, I don't always mean what you're surrounded by. It's like, what are you looking at on a day-to-day basis? What are you reading? Who are you surrounding yourself with? All these things need to be in line with your goals and the person that you want to become.
Yeah. And I think those goal-oriented objectives are things that you have to look at from both a short, mid, and long-term perspective, right? So your long-term objectives are, hey, I want to be jacked as fuck, right? You know, like that's
yes,
mine.
I agree. Same.
Right? Yeah, it's yours as well.
Yeah.
It's not, but that's not everybody's. You know, hey, I want to be skinny and see my abs. I want to, you know, be able to run a 5K. You know, those are objectives that you need to set for yourself. Of what if the world was perfect and I had a perfect image of myself, what would that look like? Right. And then you start to figure out, hey, how can I start to chip away at this to get there? And, you know, I still get frustrated at times. There was a dad bod transformation post recently, and there was this guy that, you know, literally posted, it was a year transformation. Now, you know, it showed him before and after he looks like this massive ripped Arnold dude, right? Obviously the dude's injecting a shit ton of steroids. And obviously he had a big set of muscle beforehand that he was able to chip away at his fat, right? So you have to look at it in perspective of, well, yeah, that guy already had been lifting probably for 10 years, you know, and had all of this muscle, but yet had a ton of fat. And then he got his nutrition in order and a lot of steroids, and he went up in strength and, you know, muscle, and then he shed away all that fat. So his journey was an 11-year journey to get to that point, yet you only see that 1 year comparison of before and after, right? And that's frustrating for me because I'm like, well, fuck, why don't I look like that yet? You know, and I'm like, you know, but I've only been on this journey for a year, you know? So, you know, it takes time for that to actually go and happen. And these things are not immediate, but the small things that you put into your life, and we'll talk about some of those small things, you know, and we're going to get into some of those in future podcasts and stuff like that. And you can also listen to the historical podcasts on some of those, the foundational pieces. But, you know, just making, you know, like my promise to me, you know, Ben, since I started with you, you know, the first thing that you introduced me to was MyFitnessPal. Had not used it before, had not counted my calories, had not looked at my macronutrients. You know, I thought I was eating healthy by going to Panera, which actually turned out to be 1,000 calories, you know, for per meal that I was eating. So if you think about it, you know, with everything else on the shit that I was eating the other day, I was probably pounding around 4,500 calories a day, and I'm wondering why I didn't lose weight. You know, and so, you know, the first thing that you introduced me to was MyFitnessPal. I have not missed one single day at all in MyFitnessPal since I started, right? And that's a promise to me. That's a promise I made to myself that I will log everything that I eat, even if I fuck it up, you know, like, and don't get me wrong.
If you have to log 10,000 calories, you'll log
10,000 calories. I'm logging 10,000 calories, and then I'm gonna be like, Ben, I ate 10,000 calories yesterday. I'm a piece of shit, and I need to figure out what I did yesterday. You know, like, you know, you know, and I've done that, you know, but the other day I actually didn't count. I told Ben this. I confessed. I'm like, listen, Christmas, I ate really good. Protein, everything, macros, fantastic. I had 5 Buckeyes, and I didn't log them. I
didn't ask you this the other day. What's a Buckeye?
So like these, I can go get one in the fridge. And there's still like 10 there. I'm like, Aaron, get rid of these damn things because I'm gonna keep
start handing these shits out to people.
Like, and here's the thing, like they're basically chocolate and peanut butter. Okay, is basically what it is. And I'm not a big peanut butter fan, but if you take peanut butter and you mix it with a shit ton of sugar, and then you put more sugar in it, and then you put chocolate around it, it tastes amazing. So it's basically, it looks like it's like dark chocolate or you know, milk chocolate around the edges and underneath it, and then in the center is basically peanut butter, and those are Buckeyes, and those are like one of my favorite things to eat. So, you know, but I'm like, you know what, five Buckeyes aren't going to kill me. I can afford myself that, but I do make an attempt to log every aspect, even alcohol, you know, whatever I do. But that's a promise to myself, and that's one small thing mindset wise that you can make a difference of, is saying, listen, in order for me to make a change, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start logging my calories, everything I eat in MyFitnessPal, and I'm not going to ever waver from that again. And that's a framework you can put yourself in, because you know, hey, if I'm eating 10,000 calories a day, or if I'm eating 5,000 calories a day, I'm going to gain weight. You know, if I eat 2,000 calories a day, I'm probably going to lose weight. So these things are small things that you can start to incorporate from a habit perspective that start to frame your mindset in a way that allows you to be successful.
So I just Googled Buckeyes there. I mean, for anybody who's in the UK, to me, it just looks like what we would describe as a peanut butter ball that doesn't have a lid on the top, but they look good as hell. I actually was out for breakfast with Harper earlier on. I had something very similar. But a point that I want to note, and I said last week, of course, that I would remember to sort of big everybody up in the client group. Obviously, the majority of people's check-ins on Monday just there, and it was so good to see people that we were able to enjoy Christmas, not have any guilt around food, still stay on track, know what they needed to do beforehand, still able to make progress. Like the amount of people that were still able to improve on their weight, improve on their metrics, and improve on everything else, still get their sessions in. It wasn't a total fucking write-off.
Yeah.
And it was so good to see that. Something like I've never been able to do that before because they didn't have the structure, the knowledge, the education, the foundations, all the shit that we go through, in the coaching process. And they were delighted about it because obviously, we have this relationship with Christmas that it's a food holiday, that it's just, you just have to go to town on food and you feel like shit the next day and whatever else. And it doesn't actually have to be like that. And that, again, is a shift in mindset, that you don't have to fucking wake up and have a chocolate orange for breakfast on Christmas Day and then eat a selection box and then you have the breakfast and start drinking and whatever else. It doesn't need to be that way.
What's interesting about Christmas is, so, we cooked a ton of food. We had just food all over the place. And, the first thing that I look at is, how do I get my protein, right? So what I did in the morning is I had a protein shake and I skipped my bagel because I knew that was going to be extra carbohydrates that I was probably going to pick up during the lunch and dinner time frames. And so I still got my lift in and everything else is great. And when I got to sit down, there was ham, there was turkey, there was mashed potatoes, there's stuffing, there's cranberry sauce, which is awesome, by the way, but only the stuff that comes in cans. You can't have anything else. It's a US thing, by the way. It has to actually have like the ridges from the can on it. Then it's good. But then there's all this food spread, right? There's pumpkin pie and all this other stuff. First thing I do, if you look at my plate, proportion size wise, I have a full plate of food, and it's filled with turkey and ham. Like the majority of my plate is turkey and ham. I have a little bit of stuffing and I have a little bit of mashed potatoes. And that's perfect within my macro breakdown. It was like 60 grams of protein, 30 grams of carbohydrates, probably 20 grams of fat. That's great. That's a great breakdown for me to be able to go and eat. So I shoved that down, and guess what? I had a nice slice of pumpkin pie with, a whole bunch of Ready Whip on it. That's 370 calories right there. Boom. All of a sudden now I have a good count of what I can eat the rest of the day. And hey, you know what? I need to have a protein shake at night, or I need to have, a little bit more, something protein centered like Greek yogurt or something like that at night. But I was able to really manage my eating, still eat really well, feel full, to the T, and really manage the whole aspect of the whole entire time without issue.
Yeah, and it just comes down to everything that we've sort of done up until this point, to understand food, understand calories, and that literally comes down from that sort of start point of using MyFitnessPal to give you an understanding of food. And I obviously saw the tweet earlier on. The guy said that it wasn't a sustainable way to live, and I think we'll do another podcast when it goes beyond calories in versus calories out. But in my opinion, and from my experience, tracking your food on MyFitnessPal is an essential part of anybody's journey, because nobody has a fucking clue about food, portion size, how food's made up, and I think it just comes down to probably the media, marketing, the restaurants, and I know especially in America, portions are just fucking out of control. So nobody actually has an idea as to, how a meal should be made up, or a decent meal should be made up. And exactly to sort of go back to your point that, before we started, you thought you were eating healthy. A lot of healthy foods high in calories. Yes, it's delicious and you're eating good food, and obviously it's a bonus, it's unprocessed and whatever else. But you can still overconsume on healthy foods. It just comes down to the calories of it. So, not to get into a whole nutrition talk, but I definitely think that having that understanding of food and sort of how it's made up is definitely essential for anybody sort of starting out or whatever they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, we've talked about this in previous podcasts. We won't go into all the specifics, but when we talk about macronutrients, that's the most important concept to understand in nutrition. There are more advanced stuff like micronutrients and blood tests to see if you're deficient in certain areas, things like that, to optimize your body. What we're talking about here is three simple concepts: proteins, fats, and carbohydrates. That's it. And everybody thinks carbohydrates are bad. Carbohydrates are literally your energy source. Your body burns carbohydrates first. The stuff that it doesn't use, it turns into fat. Fat, if it doesn't use it, doesn't burn it, goes right into fat stores. Proteins, what's used for protein synthesis to build muscle. Obviously one of the most important aspects if you're trying to get jacked. The biggest thing is trying to understand that splits. For me, everybody's different. In fact, I was just listening to, we can't go a podcast without talking about Huberman Labs podcast.
We should just, are we not on first name terms with him? Can we just call him Andrew? Is this the Andrew's podcast?
This is the Andrew's podcast, and Andrew and I are like good friends. He doesn't know me, but I know him really well from all the podcasts I listen to him on. I listened to him in the sauna. I listened to him. We just share times together. But he had a doctor on that specializes in a lot of different studies around your body. And one of the ones that was really interesting was he had talked about how everybody's body is metabolically different, how they operate different genetics. The things that are the same, the circadian clock that we have, or the circadian rhythm that we have, where this is something like 89 or 93% of our DNA is geared towards our clocks, our internal clocks of how our bodies operate. So protein synthesis, most efficient in the morning. So if you have protein intake in the morning, it's the best versus throughout the day and night, or at night if you're going to do something like casein. But anyways, what he was explaining was, he is more of a smaller build type of guy, and he needs less protein requirements than Huberman did because, he's more of a bigger muscular guy. And they talk about kind of their different ways that they eat and how they space things out. But typically, if your goal is to gain muscle, you want a macronutrient breakdown that's higher in protein and, and somewhere in the middle of carbohydrates and fats. Now, when you start to optimize that, more carbohydrates equate to more energy, less fat equates to less fat. So if you have a high protein, high carbohydrate diet, you have the ability to have high levels of energy throughout the day, as well as maximize your muscle growth, right? So when you start looking at nutrients and you start looking at nutrition, it's really, finding what works best for you. But really the most important aspect of things literally is calories. Like your body will figure out how to move things in different directions in different areas based on what you eat. Calories in versus calories out is the simplest form of another. Again, there's complexities to that with thermodynamics, and some of them have, harder for your body to digest, which equates to more calories being burned and stuff like that. I'm not talking about the very, explicit details of that, but calories in versus calories out. If you're eating more calories than you burn, you're going to gain weight. So if you are skinny and you want to gain weight, you eat more food, right? If you're heavy set or fat and you eat less, then you're going to lose less. Now, again, don't put yourself in a 2,000 calorie caloric deficit. You're going to hate life. But at the end of the day, 200 calories a day in a deficit, 400 calories a day in a deficit, you can have some pretty awesome results, 2 to 3 pounds a week, sometimes upwards of 4 to 6 if you're obese. So, there's some great benefits to just understanding nutrition and understanding, hey, what am I putting in my body? Those three things: carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. What does my body actually need to get myself through the day?
Not to go into a whole nutrition talk. Let's go into a whole nutrition talk anyway.
Let's do it. Let's just do it. Fuck.
One point that you touched on there about the sort of negative view that people have on carbohydrates. And this, again, from my knowledge, it just comes down to what the narrative around carbohydrates have been for the past 10, 20 years is that, they're bad and they make you fat. So people have that in their head that they can't eat carbs and can't eat carbohydrates. And that even in itself is a thing that I need to learn, or, I have to help people overcome getting beyond that sort of fear of carbohydrates, again, which is a mindset thing. But again, that just comes down to sort of, understanding why you have that. Was it, I know there's a couple of people in the group who have said that, their mum was always on a diet, or their auntie or their granny or whoever was always on a diet, and it was no carbs, it was Atkins diet or whatever other fucking madness diets that were going on at the time. So they have that sort of ingrained in them that carbs are bad and carbs are the devil and they can't eat them and all this other shit. And a point that you said there is in terms of the promise that you made to yourself. And I think that this is an important one to sort of touch on mindset, because a lot of times whenever I'm on calls with people at the start, they have failed at so many things in the past: diets, training, previous trainers, whatever it is that they've tried to do to lose weight or gain muscle. There has been a consecutive amount of failures over time. So they have this sort of like mental block with actually being successful with something. And even, you saying about making that promise to yourself, being able to actually keep that promise is a more positive reinforcement to yourself as to like, oh shit, right, well, I can actually do this. Like I can actually be successful with this. And, you know, you yourself have said how many different diets you've tried, how many times you've been up and down in weight, how many different things that you've done. So for you to be able to actually make and keep that promise up until this point and have the success that you've had in that is are you changing your lights?
Yeah,
I'm trying to talk about fucking mindset and you're changing the background lights. Of course I'm fucking seeing.
All right, yeah. I was changing my lights. You're all blue, and I'm like, man, I want to look like a different color. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But yes, anyway, the being able to make and keep a promise to yourself, and Jason as well. I know I've spoken about Jason last week, but he is the same as that. You know, he made a promise to himself at the start of this year that he was going to make a change, and he's had an incredible year in terms of health benefits and, you know, how he feels. And, you know, you see it yourself, like last week in the call, like he's an entirely different person. Like he was always, you know, happy to be there and whatever else, but he's an entirely different person on the call. And that is because he kept and kept a promise to himself at the start of the year. And I think being able to do that will put you in that, again, positive relationship with yourself, that you don't label yourself as a failure. Like how you speak to yourself is so important. You know, if you say, well, I always feel at this and I always do that, well, yeah, you're going to, because you're literally telling yourself that. So being able to make a small promise to yourself, keep it, will then allow you to make other promise to yourself and sort of build on that. And then, you know, that's how you sort of set yourself up for success.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us have experienced rock bottom in our health journeys, right? You know, I remember doing the Shaun T Insanity, and that's probably my first attempt of, like, I would say, trying to change my life for the better. I mean, I was all in, right? I would not miss a workout routine, you know. And if you're not familiar with Shaun T's Insanity, it's a 60-minute HIIT training program that you do on TV, and it's just, you know, like high knees, you know, running, push-ups, you know, you know, all stuff. You know,
sounds mad.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's intense. It is intense. And you know, I remember, I have pictures of myself, and I was, I think, 320 pounds at that time, or 315 pounds at that time. And I picture myself in, you know, like just dripping in sweat and covered. And I would do this all the time, even at DerbyCon, a conference that I ran. You know, I'd be upstairs, you know, during breaks and doing the Shaun T Insanity stuff. And, you know, the thing was, I had some success with that short term, but there's no way that level of intensity, doing that 6 or 7 days a week, is sustainable, right? And I didn't have the nutrition down as part of that. So, you know, I was basically just busting my ass and killing myself. And I think I dropped maybe like 10 or 15 pounds. And then I'm like, fuck this. And I just gained 20 pounds again, you know? And it's just, you know, but the way that my mind works, it's interesting. And I've seen myself do this a lot of times. And this is something that I really struggle with. And this is like one of my biggest fears now in this whole journey, is that, you know, I'll tell myself one day, hey, it's okay if I skip this, right? And then the next day it's like, it's just 2 days. And then it's like, it's 3 days. What is that really going to hurt? It's already been 2 days. And then it's gone, right?
And then it's 6 months later, and you're like,
and then it's 6 months later. Yeah. And that's why, you know, you talk about my training. I won't miss a training, man. Like I have not missed a training aside from injury or even on vacation. I get my training.
I was actually, I was going to say, I listened back this morning to our first mindset podcast, and it was just after you got back from whenever you were in New York at the forest and you had the dumbbells and the bench and stuff. So you know, you haven't missed the training.
The only time I missed training was when I was hurt.
Yeah, a promise that you made to yourself. And actually, Matt, who we had on a couple of weeks ago, or whenever that was, his thing about training is if he misses one day, his promise to himself is that he won't miss a second day. And it's as simple as that. You know, it's fine. You know, things come up and you can miss a day, and that's absolutely fine. But don't fucking miss a second day, because that's whenever it starts to get out of control.
Yeah, my rationality is, listen, if I'm feeling like total shit and I don't want to go work out, I will at least get to the gym and do my first exercise movement. And if I still don't feel like it afterwards, then I won't do it, right? Because I made the commitment to go there. I made the commitment to do it. I'm just not feeling it today. Like, you know, whether I'm hurt or I'm sore, or I'm tired, I have no energy, or I'm sick, I'm still going to go and make that attempt to go there as a routine to go there. I'll tell you one new routine that I've been doing, and this is totally TMI, but I learned something from The Rock. And so, like, my gym, there's no bathroom there. So, like, I literally have to, like, put different shoes on, because I only use certain shoes on my floor, because I don't like to track, things. I'm super anal about, like, it being clean and, like, being perfect. I clean it all the time. Like, and so there's no bathroom there. So The Rock says hey, my energy drink bottle that I drink, I just piss into that, when I'm going, so I don't have to go to the bathroom. I'm like, that's a great idea. So I literally, I told Erin this too. I'm like, hey, make sure you knock when you're coming in, because I'm probably peeing in a bottle. And she's like, what? She's like, what the hell is wrong with you? I'm like, listen,
The Rock said it was okay. The Rock said it was okay.
I was like, The Rock said that's what he does, and like that guy's awesome. So I want to be like that. So I'm gonna pee in a bottle, So just a really quick funny story. I was peeing in the bottle yesterday, and I wasn't paying attention, and it overflowed everywhere, and I peed all over the floor basically. So just be careful if you're peeing into a bottle at the gym.
Number one, make sure that if you're peeing in a bottle in the gym, that it's your gym at the house and it's not a public gym, please.
Anyways, I didn't mean to derail that. I had to get that story out there. But listen, I think the promises that you make to yourself, you have to hold and keep. And again, you don't want to overcommit yourself, right? You don't want to say, listen, I'm going to do Shanti's Insanity 7 days a week, and I'm going to only eat a plant-based diet, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. But wait,
that's fine. Yeah, we can say that. Okay.
The largest I ever was when I was a vegetarian. I was a vegetarian for 8 years, and you can absolutely eat unhealthy being a vegetarian. I was 215 pounds, and I was a vegetarian. So I definitely.
I know that you dropped that out of podcast before. I'm like, what? 8 years as a vegetarian? What the fuck?
Yeah.
But anyway, so another sort of point to touch on with that. Obviously, having calls with people all the time, and as you're talking about being at rock bottom and stuff like that, I have these similar sort of conversations with people all the time, and generally, the sort of like. Well, the first sort of point is, you're talking about make small commitments to yourself. People will come on, they're fucking over enthusiastic, and I'm like, right, okay, how many days do you want to train? They're like 7. I'm like, okay, we'll do 3. And they're like, oh. I'm like, we'll start with 3, lowest effective dose. We can add others in down the line. So that, in terms of the promise thing, is absolutely fine. And that's, again, the reason that I do that is a mindset thing, because say, for example, they say 7 and something happens and they only get 6 in, they feel like they failed again, and that failure thing will trigger with them. Whereas if maybe not 3, but if I say 4 and they get the 4 in, perfect. And if they want to do an extra day and they get a 5th day, then they've done more than they said they're going to do. And that's, again, a positive reinforcement thing. So that's just a sort of sideline in terms of mindset. But what I'm trying to say is, in terms of the conversations that I have with people, there's 2 things that always come up. It's number one, they're like, I don't know how I got here. And I actually spoke to Chris about this on Monday. We were talking about his, he was looking back at his very first, before picture, I guess, his before picture. And he was like, number one, looking back now, he doesn't recognize that person. But number 2, he doesn't know how he actually ended up as out of shape and unhealthy as he did. Right. And it's because you obviously not tracking that or whatever else, but that it's that sort of I don't know how I got here. And I think that sort of relates back to the coding analogy that I absolutely fucking nailed, in terms of understanding, how that was put together and what actually happened up to that point. The other thing that I often hear is, I used to be X, Y, and Z. I used to be in the military. I used to be a fucking college athlete. I used to be X, Y, and Z. I used to train all the time, whatever else. And obviously those 2 things go hand in hand. If you used to be, we'll use Chris as an example because I was talking to him on Monday. He used to surf, skateboard, play sports and whatever else, super active, and got away with all these, the food and whatever else. He moved cities or states, and all of the activities that he did in the previous state they didn't do them in the new state. So he stopped all the sort of output and things that he did and continued to eat the same. Obviously, a lot of the people that I talk to, the biggest sort of change for them is whenever they got out of college, they got into the job that they were focused on their career. They weren't out and about as much, and then got married, family, all these sort of things that sort of took over, and they sort of forgot about themselves, put themselves on the back burner. And they're the sort of things that happen. So it's about knowing and understanding what happened or where it went wrong, for want of a better phrase. And the thing, and I don't know, sometimes it goes down well, sometimes it doesn't go down well, but whatever. And the thing that I always sort of put to people is, I used to do this and I used to do that. Nobody gives a fuck what you used to do. It's not about what you used to do or who you used to be. It's who you are now and what you're going to do moving forward to better yourself, and getting into that sort of that mindset of, okay, I'm never going to be that person again, because, whenever you're 20 and you don't have a fucking care in the world and you're at college and you can just piss about and, your metabolism's through the roof and whatever else, you're never going to be in that position again. So there's no point being like, oh, but if I get back to this or I get back to that, you're never going to get back to that. There's no way to. So you need to go, right, where am I at right now? And what can I do to improve myself from this point? Rather than always trying to be like, you need to fucking your DeLorean to get back in a fucking time machine to get back to when you were 20 so that you can, do all these things that you used to do. And people are so fixated and hung up on the things that they used to do or the way that it used to be or the way that they used to feel. And I'll bring this back to what you said in the podcast last week, that you feel better than you did in any of those years. So
yeah,
it doesn't necessarily mean that because you did this before or because you were this way before, that is when you peaked or that was when you're optimal. And one thing that you said is that you didn't actually know that you could feel this good. And I think that and again, is another sort of point to note, that when people come to me, they maybe just want to lose a bit of weight, but they don't know what that will lead them to. Do you know what I mean? Whether it is a case of they want to lose 50 pounds or they want to put on 10 pounds or whatever else. Like, that's the sort of entry level thing, because that's what they think they need. But what often comes off the back of it is exactly what you're saying, is like, okay, right, you wanted to lose weight, but you never actually thought that life and how you feel could be this good. And I think that's a fucking massive thing to say.
Well, I think you look at this and it's tenfold, right? Very similar story, by the way, to Chris, except mine was on the military side, where they force you to PT every morning, right? So you're physical training, so you're basically running 1,000,000 miles, you're going to the gym or whatever, and then you're eating 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 calories a day because you're burning so much, and then you get out of the military and you're like, hey, I don't have to PT anymore, sweet, and then you still eat 4,000, 5,000 calories, and you're like, bloop. And it happens to all of us in the military, at least a lot of us. And, they don't teach the nutritional aspects and how to control your diet and that type of stuff. It's all fed to you. You go to the chow hall, the food's already prepared for you, what you eat, portion sizes. I mean, it's basically, you're in the military, right? The thing to understand, I think what you talked about on the different aspects there is that, every part of what you do is one, so that you feel better about yourself, your confidence, right? So, I have a lot of confidence in myself. It's weird. I told the story a couple podcasts ago, but I had done the first in-person presentation at GurCon a few months ago. And, I felt presenting so much more confident and sure about myself as I was up on that stage because of my health, right? I felt great about myself. So that's one aspect there, which is, you get the confidence and things like that. You get the body image side of the house where, Erin, my wife, will tell me all the time, she's like, man, I can't believe you're this muscular. This is awesome. It's like having a whole new husband, basically, so it's, and she loves it, and she loves the journey that I'm on with that. But there's also the aspect of how you feel. And I think we don't talk a lot about that because everybody wants to look great. But what comes along with that is all of the added, obviously, health benefits of looking great. So your brain is optimized, your body is optimized, your endurance, your stamina, your ability to do things, your energy levels are through the roof. Everything starts to hit at a whole different level than it ever has before, and that is what this does to you, right? And I don't even say your outlook on life is much more positive as well, because you're achieving something that you've never done before. You're being successful at it, which equates to yourself being more positive about certain things. So, I can honestly say, like, this is the best time I've ever had in my marriage. And a lot of that is due to travel and stuff like that, being cut down and being home for my family, my kids growing up and those types of things. But I've said this before, but I'm active. I'm coaching my kids' 6th grade basketball team. I'm actively involved in a lot of charities. I'm doing a lot more things that I never had the energy to go and do because I was never just in that situation to be fit. And it's the best I've ever felt my entire life.
Yeah. And I think that is probably the biggest sort of curveball, I guess, for me, whenever it comes to what you get from training and managing nutrition and, looking and feeling better is it's that, okay, well, I achieved this thing that I never thought I would before. What else can I achieve? Do you know what I mean? It's like you open yourself up to like, well, fuck, if I did that, I can do anything. And I think that, a really point that I want to sort of hammer home is if you have the right mindset and the right attitude, you can genuinely achieve anything. And I don't think that there's any sort of like, I don't think there's anything that would go against that. Like if you put your mind to it, you have the right mindset and the right mentality, you can literally achieve anything. It's not going to be easy, and it's getting yourself into that mindset isn't going to be easy. But again, this is a perfect example. And again, this comes down to how you speak to yourself. I always said, and Martin, the guy, my friend who's a photographer, he was always like, can you get on video, you know, on Instagram so people can get across your personality? And I was like, fuck that. I'm not good on video. I'm not a good public speaker, blah, blah, blah. And I was telling myself, I'm not these things. I mean, granted, there's only 31 people watch this on fucking YouTube, but I'm on video right now. I'm having a
by the way,
conversation.
we hit 10,000. We hit 10,000 views, by the way. And we're ranked number 243 on Apple.
216.
216. Okay, so anyways,
not to
dismiss. We're getting better. We're getting way better.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening, by the way.
It must be all the good intros that I'm doing. But yes, anyway, so the things that I was telling myself were obviously true, because, you know, I was like, well, no, I can't do this, and I'm not a good speaker, and blah, 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 blah. And I mean, if I look back, whenever I first started it must have been about 2 years ago. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to throw myself into the deep end. I'm just going to start going live on Facebook. And I mean, a funny story about that, I actually found a piece of software that allowed me to record myself beforehand and then upload it so it looked like I was actually live on Facebook. I was like, that, you know, so I'm not actually live. And I was like, I'm just doing these one take and then going anyway. So I just started going live. But anyway, if I look back to those, and sometimes they come up my Facebook memories, I was like, geez, I really wasn't good at that. But I had the sort of mindset as, I want to get better at this, because, you know, I think probably the biggest thing that's come from this podcast is people get more of an understanding of me and my personality, because it's just me having a conversation. And I think, you know, being able to do that and being able to put myself out there and get better at these things only comes from the fact that I know that I have been able to achieve other things, whether it's physique-wise, whether it's training-wise, whether it's the discipline to do X, Y, and Z. And, you know, all these things come as a byproduct from starting one thing and making that promise to yourself.
Even like just, you know, simple things like walking around the house without a shirt on, you know, or outside. Like you would never catch me dead, you know, inside or outside the house with my shirt off, right? And now I have zero issue with that whatsoever, right? And I think, you know, the confidence boost that you get in yourself allows you to be successful in other things. But again, that comes down to, when do you feel comfortable doing that and making those changes appropriately to get to there? And it's taken me, you know, when I came to you, Ben, I mean, I wasn't extremely overweight. You know, I had body fat, you know, of course. I was, you know, what we consider skinny fat. And, you know, but, you know, it's taken a year and a half to get to the point where I'm at now. Right. And it's a year and a half of going hardcore. I mean, it's been a hardcore journey here. Right. So, you know, I'm not saying you have to do that, you know, but it may take you a little bit longer. Right. You know, I've gone through my regimens before. You know, I lift 6 days a week. I do Orange Theory 3 days a week. I have 1 day of rest. You know, my macros are locked in. You know, I've done all these things to support getting to this as fast as I possibly can. Now, you know, when you look at those small adjustments, that didn't come at once. You always bring the story up of Chris, which I really like a lot. When Chris first started on this program with you, he's like, hey, I can dedicate 2 30-minute sessions a week. That was it, right? And he's like, that's all I have time for, right? And that's progressed to what? He's lifting 5 days a week now?
Yeah, he's doing 4, and then he's doing Orange Theory on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still way better than him. But you know, but it's one of those things where, you know, he has progressed over time by starting off with like, listen, hey, I'm going to do 2 30-minute sessions a day or a week. That's fantastic. Do it. You know, get 10,000 steps a day. Do it. You know, those are small incremental changes that you can make that will have resonating impacts the rest of your time. You know, but all of this does not work unless you get your nutrition down first, right? Would you agree with that, Ben? I mean, mindset is there, but you have to get your nutrition down.
Yeah. So just to sort of touch on, you know, what you're talking about, Chris, there is that even that I don't have time is a narrative that you're telling yourself. Like, everybody has the same 24 hours in the day. It's about your priorities and how you prioritize your time. And yes, I get that, you know, people are busier than others and whatever else, but there's infinite ways that I can look at your day and save you half an hour in your day that you can go for a walk or, you know, whatever it is that you want to do. So that even in itself is, oh, I'm too busy, I have time, is a narrative that you're telling yourself and is a mindset that you need to change. Then moving into what you're talking about, nutrition, getting nutrition down. I absolutely agree. Yes, nutrition is on par, as equally as important. But again, if you don't have the mindset side down, then that will fail too, because we're, as humans, very good at making up excuses, or, you know, it's like, oh, I'm a stress eater, or, you know, I've always been this way, or I'm fucking big boned.
I'm big boned. Big boned. Wait, this your time. Yeah, I used to tell myself all the time, I'm big boned.
Yeah. But, you know, you start to make these excuses for yourself because, number one, it's easier, and number two, you're not in the headspace to actually change. So all of these things come from changing how you think, how you feel about yourself, and, you know, it all comes from your mindset. Like, I genuinely think, and this is, I know we touched on in the first mindset podcast, my sort of naivety whenever I went in as a coach, like I was like, yeah, fucking body, everybody wants a six pack, blah, blah, blah. And to be fair, I would say that, you know, the entry into the majority of conversations I have, it's not someone going, oh, I need to fix my mindset. It's, I need to lose weight, or I want to gain muscle, or whatever. Yes, okay, to an extent, that's what they need. But what they really need is to change their fucking mindset and their relationship with themselves, with food, with people around them, and whatever else. But I can't be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna, you know, you need to come to me to fix your mindset. It's so interlinked, but I definitely think that the mindset thing is definitely the first point that we need to touch on.
Yep. No, I fully agree. If you're not there with the mind, even if you get your nutrition down, you don't have the motivation, you don't have the small things, the long-term, you know, views of things, you're not going to be successful with it. You know, I would just say,
the one thing that I was going to pick on you that I'm not going to forget, I know that we're almost coming up to time, so
I guess I got to go. I'll see you guys later.
My internet's down, laptop closed. No, so the one thing, so what I'm talking about now is the narrative that you tell yourself. So I'm not this person, or I am this person, or whatever else. So you tell me all the time that you don't like the cold, but you're telling yourself that you don't like the cold. So I actually want you to challenge yourself in the new year to take at least one cold shower a week. You can't tell people, and we can't be having a podcast now about mindset and you can achieve anything and you've had all this great success. You'd be like, oh no, but the showers are too cold. I don't like the cold. Boo hoo.
Well, the only thing I would contradict with on that is that it may be an actual like systemic issue where like I relate it to war is my so it's more, it might be like more of like a post-traumatic stress thing that I'm dealing with here. That's
okay. So that, again, obviously in a much deeper conversation, is a mindset thing.
It absolutely is. And honestly, I'm sure I can overcome it. It's just one of those things where every time I take a cold shower, it reminds me of being in Iraq again. And, just because it's all we had was cold showers over there. So I automatically trigger that I'm, it's so I agree with you. It just always reminds me of that. So I'll definitely do what I can. But it's like one of those things where I'm like, it's a cold shower. And then I psych myself out. I'm like, the water will be running, right? The water's running and I see it, but I'm not in it. And I have to like psych myself just to get in it. And then I'm in it. I'm like, this sucks. Okay, I'm out. Okay, I'm going back in again. I have a lot of work to do there. I will admit that.
But okay, right. So fair enough. And I get it. But, well, I don't get it, but I understand. So what I would say is, imagine how good you'll feel in 6 months' time when you don't have that same feeling whenever you get into a cold shower. And cold showers, you're one for studies and,
oh yeah,
whatever
amazing.
Else. Like, the benefits. The benefits. Yes, amazing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So my challenge to you is to actually do the fucking cold showers, because we can't bark on about mindset. And you can make a challenge for me, whatever you want, but unless it's like do Orange Theory or run 5K, fuck that.
a drunk handstand.
No, because I injured myself. We're not promoting alcoholism in this. But anyway, so even what you're talking about in terms of like standing in front of the cold, my thing about that is be in a warm shower. Like the way that I started was be in a warm shower, and the Wim Hof app is really, really good for this. What it does is they have a beginner, intermediate, and an expert level, and they start off with 15 seconds of a cold shower. So you get into the shower, the timer's on for 180 seconds. So you have 180 seconds in a warm shower, normal shower, clean yourself, whatever you need to do. Then whenever the timer changes, you flip to cold right away. So you're already in the shower. You don't have that moment of stood in front of the cold water and it's so cold that you can actually feel the coldness of it. You're already in it. So you don't have that second to be like, well, I'm not getting into it. I'm going to get into it. I'm not going to get into it. And it's literally 15 seconds. And then it builds up. So it adds 15 seconds every week, I think. So you do like 4 or 5 a week.
What's like the max time? What's like the ideal time to be in a cold shower?
I don't know. Go and ask your mate, Andre.
No, the studies are subjective to that, but
so this is the thing that sort of started with me and Matt. Like, whenever I started with the Wim Hof, I was like, I'm not doing the fucking beginner one. I go into the intermediate one, and then you move to the expert one. And I think the sort of upper range for it is 3 minutes. So you do 3 minutes warm, 3 minutes cool.
That's fair. That's fair. Can you go back to warm again when you're done and like finish up, or is it just?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think
I'll say the last night for some reason I've been a cold baby. So like I talked about this before, but like to optimize your sleep, I have a cooling pad, and it shoots water through like a pad that you put on top of your thing. I think it's an Uli is the one that I use. And it's called the chili pad. And I keep it the very lowest setting possible. It's super cold. So when I get in my covers, it is cold as hell. But like I've gotten used to it, and my body reduces its temperature quickly, and I can fall asleep much easier and I have a much better sleep. I have no issue with that at all. But the last couple days, yesterday, I was just like, I'm freaking cold, man. So I cranked that thing up to like 100 degrees, and I'm so cold. And then this morning, I'm like, I'm cold. So like so I'm a cold baby. I got it.
Yeah, there's something that you have to overcome. You have to overcome it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That was a good podcast.
Right. Yeah, well, I feel like we need to like finish up with like, this is the thing that, 3 tips to overcome your mindset and whatever else. Mine are going to be work out how you're coded, understand that, why you are the way you are, change your narrative and your relationship with yourself, how you speak to yourself, and change your environment is the other one. So whether it's social media, if there's people that piss you off or have a negative, or even if it's, sometimes I find that if you follow people who are constantly in good shape, or these fucking bodybuilders, I used to follow them all the time, and I'm like, looking at these, and that's when you start comparing yourself. That can be a negative thing as well. Some people, it can be motivational, and that's totally cool, but some people, they compare themselves and then they go down this fucking rabbit hole. So work out how you're coded, change your narrative to yourself, and change your environment, whether that's your actual physical environment, where you work, where you stand, where you have your family, friends, or on social media.
The big one for me is make very small changes over time. So start off with, hey, I'm going to log my calories, and that's a promise to myself. Or, hey, I'm going to, try to get more protein than I do carbohydrates or fats. Or, hey, I'm going to try to stick to a specific amount of calories a day. And by the way, I not to derail this conversation, my other tea. I won't talk about peeing in a bottle again, but there is some major benefits of intermittent fasting, your body basically, when it goes into, I put in parentheses or quote, starvation mode, it cleans up your entire body. Like, it repairs things better. Your body becomes more efficient. Your mind fires on full cylinders. It actually has longevity things that occur where, people that, and this has been studied in mice and humans, people that are on intermittent fasting live substantially longer. There's an interesting, the Human Labs podcast just released this last week, that the doctor talked about their mice typically live anywhere from 3 to 5 years, and normal mice live a year. And they've done that through intermittent fasting. Like, longevity wise, it has some major implications on that. So going into 2022, one of the small changes that I'm making, and I've already started this, is I am not going to eat anytime past 8 o'clock. Now, the only exception to this rule that I sometimes have is sometimes I'd like to have like a bourbon or an alcohol every so often. And it's not very often that I do it, but maybe like once every couple of weeks or something like that. Maybe at night I will have a bourbon when it breaks that fast. But from 8 o'clock in the morning, typically until like 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the afternoon next day, I will not eat anything at all. And I will get into that fasted state where my body's basically going into repair mode and doing the things that you need to. So that's a good fasting window. So tip on that is if you can stop eating at 8 o'clock and not eat until like, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, you will have some good benefits there from an energy perspective. Weight loss, things like that occur as part of that. So that's one tip there, but small changes is number one. Number two, I would say, which we didn't discuss, which I'm surprised we didn't discuss, is get your sleep down. And that's part of mindset as well, is getting your sleep in order. Sleep is probably one of the most impactful things that you can do to help repair and replenish your body, your brain, and everything else that goes along with it. We need sleep. I
actually got a new app. I was going to send you, but I want to use it myself. It's called Rise. And actually what it does is, number one, it calculates your sleep depth for the week. So how much sleep you need versus how much sleep you actually get and how much in depth you are. But it gives you like and if anybody's watching on YouTube, I'm drawing a chart the same way that Dave was. It gives you like a curved chart throughout the day as to when you're going to be most optimal. So when you have your high energy points, when that starts to dip in the afternoon. And actually, funnily enough, I don't know whether it's just because of the different time zones and whatever else, but there's probably from about now, so 6 p.m. where I am, until about 7:30, I have my second sort of like high energy, high productivity spurt in the day. So it's going to be cool for me to do this and sort of see if it's sort of in line with how I work and when the optimal time for me to work is. But yeah, it's called Rise. I'll actually send you the link to it, but I'm going to do it for sort of a week before we can review it. And just to touch on your intermittent fasting things, I have no issues with intermittent fasting. I know the benefits. I used to do actually extended fast. So I used to do 36 hours, and like in that, right in the middle of that, how you feel is like nothing else. Like you're talking about mental clarity and energy and everything else, like really, really, really fucking good. The only issue that I have is people think that it's the only way, and they are intermittent fasting, they do it, and they put the fucking D word on the end of it, and that's where it becomes a shit show.
Yeah.
If you do windowed eating or restrict timing, whatever you want, but if you're somebody who's like intermittent fasting is the only fucking way to lose weight, you can get in the fucking
way. That's a problem. Yep, I agree. Same thing for like keto or whatever. It's like
that's a whole different topic.
Do not
diet. I don't know if you saw the guy. I asked him why he did keto, and he was like, "It's the best way to lose weight." And I was like, "I'm not going to speak to you on Twitter anymore because I can fucking be in it."
Did I actually unfriended somebody recently? Like they were going into like some crazy like I don't know, like just crazy tribal insaneness of like no science backing whatsoever to like, hey, a bunch of my friends talk about this, so now we're experts in this area, so keto's the only way and you're gonna die if you don't do it. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm like I have to unfriend you. I'm sorry. Like I can't deal with this right now.
But this is exactly what I'm talking about, the environment. So that's exactly it. Being able to take yourself out of that so you're not reading this negativity, because people who maybe aren't as strong mindset wise, they'll be like, maybe keto is the way that I need to do it. And then you're in the fucking cult and you can't get out of it. So being able to just sort of take yourself out of that situation, unfriend that person, it means that you can sort of, clean up your environment, social environment.
And listen, this is not a knock on keto or anything else. Like, I mean, like, the problem is the diet fad trend that we put ourselves into that will not make you successful long term. I mean, I know very few people that have been able to sustain keto for long terms. Now, some people have, and they have great benefits with it. It's minuscule of the people that are successful with that, right? And what happens with those diets is you basically go on them, you might have some success, and then you're going to gain it all back again. So, again, we're not trying to knock specific things that you can do to optimize your body, but you're going to fail. Most people are going to fail on those specific types of diets.
Yeah, you're okay, right? In all fairness, 100%. Like, there are benefits. I get it. There are some people who have to do it through health and whatever else.
Yep.
The issue that I have is the misinformation and the people who are like, this is the only way. That's where the issue becomes. It's the same with anything. It's like, that's not the only way to do it, and have a bit of a sort of open mind to be able to do other things. It's not keto itself. It's the stuff that goes along with it.
It's no different than what we do from a high protein, high carbohydrate diet, right? We got our nutrition down. We find what works best for us and what optimizes our body from an energy perspective and everything else. Same thing. I mean, you convert those scales and you go to a predominantly high fat, high protein, low carbohydrate diet, and your body then starts to go into ketosis, which uses fat for an energy source. That if you have those fundamentals and that foundation, that nutrition there, and you want to do that for health reasons, then that's a different story than, hey, I'm going to go on keto to lose 20 pounds, right? You're not going to be successful in that journey. So it's the wording of how it's being portrayed. Like, if you just eat broccoli all day, you're going to fucking lose 100 pounds. Well, who wants to eat broccoli all day long? And by the way, keto may sound great because you're like, oh shit, I get to eat ham, fats, cheeses, meats.
The cheese on a burger for my breakfast.
Yeah. Everything. It sounds amazing, dude. I'll tell you, after a month of that, you're like, I effing hate burgers. I hate cheese. And I never thought I'd say that. I'm a cheeseaholic, and I don't eat much cheese anymore, but there's too much fat in there. But it's just crazy. Like, you get burned out on that diet very quickly. And again, it's a diet.
Yeah, and
so that's my
just to finalize the keto talk. The issue that I have seen is I'm in a couple of keto Facebook groups just for a bit of like research, I guess, and the cult that comes along with it, the meals that they post are insane. So yeah, I'll shut up now about keto. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's just again, just be careful of what you put yourself into, because it most likely won't be successful. That's why we're talking about here mindset and putting frameworks around what you can do to be successful, making minor increments throughout your life to change your patterns of behavior, those are things that will make you successful. It's like, hey, do you shut down a user day one to where they can't even log into their email? Or do you gradually make security changes, communicate things the right way, start to change their patterns of behavior, let them know that it's coming before you actually go and make these specific types of changes? So, again, humans, very difficult to change patterns of behavior and habits that we have. So these are small things to think about as you go through. So get your sleep down. So many health benefits on sleep. You'll live longer. Your body will repair itself. You have mental clarity. Everything starts to work. You have more energy. Like, there's a lot of things that happen with sleep. And again, it's bullshit to say, hey, I only need 2 hours of sleep. There's very rare people that need it. The average studies on there's actually negative benefits to long-term sleeping too. So the sweet spot is 6.5 hours a day. That is the latest scientific research on sleep right now. 6.5 hours is the sweet spot. Anything more, anything less causes cognitive decline. So if you're sleeping 10 hours a day, you can expect some cognitive decline over time. If you're sleeping 2 hours a day, you'll expect some cognitive decline over time. So 6.5 hours seems to be the sweet spot for human beings on the sleep side of the house. So again, for 1, small incremental changes. 2, sleep. 3rd is track your damn calories. That is my 3rd. And that is a mindset thing. Promise yourself that I'm going to track my calories every single day. And people are like, oh my God, it's such a burden. It takes me 5 seconds to log my food. Like, I can tell you right now, I'll go into my app right now and I'm going to show you on the screen, because, everybody watches the screen, but I already have all my food for today logged. It's all logged already. Everything that I put in my mouth has already been logged today. I'm at 1,045 calories. I got 118 grams of carbs. I got 24 grams of fat. I got 79 grams of protein. Okay. I know where I'm at from a specific day. Now I know I'm about to go work out. So I'm drinking an energy drink that has 190 milligrams of caffeine in it just to get a little bit of a spike. And I'm going to go work out. And then guess what? I'm going to pound the food again. And I know what I'm going to eat. And I balance myself throughout the day to where I get to a certain limit. Now, right now I'm at 2,800 calories, or is it 2,700? I can't remember. Anyways, it's my it's
28.
I think it's 28. So I'm at 2,800 calories a day, and I know that I need to get there. So I know what I need to eat to start to get to those points throughout the day. Now, if I, decide I want to go and I have a big burger or something like that, and it's going to be 1,000 calories, great. Now I know I need to kind of skinny it down a little bit for the rest of the day and maybe not eat as much as I'm going through. So, again, balance yourself. Now, hunger is a good thing. Now, we as a society have come to the point to where we're never hungry, and that's not good. Our bodies don't operate well when we're never hungry. Again, you see the massive obesity, the health problems, everything that goes along with that. So being hungry is okay. Fight through that. Once you start to get into a routine of these, the habits start to kick into effect. You should give yourself like 2 weeks for these habits to start to kick into place, right? Because it's going to be something different, and you're going to have to kind of push through. Especially if you're eating 4,000 calories and you should only be eating 2,500 calories a day. It's going to take you a couple of weeks to get used to that, right? But you will start to get used to that, and you will start to change your habits over time. Those are my 3.
Yeah, I think to touch on the hunger thing, I did a tweet about this the other day, and I was listening to something that this really nailed it. And it was like, you need to learn the difference between physiological and psychological hunger. Obviously, if you've been eating breakfast at 7 a.m. every day for the past 20 years, and all of a sudden you're not eating breakfast at that time, you're going to be hungry. Your body's going to think you're hungry at that point. So learn to know the difference between physiologically hungry and psychologically hungry. But that will be a whole other podcast in terms of when calories in versus calories out doesn't work.
Yep. Absolutely.
We're way over time because we went the fucking rabbit hole about keto. But anyway, yes, so that's mindset wrapped up.
Raspberry ketones. Raspberry ketones.
For sale, Dave's link in the bio.
No, listen, hey, appreciate all the listeners out there. Please share us. Let your family members know. Let your friends know. Let's help out.
Is this a review? We have not ever asked for a review. I mean, it can be 5 stars if that's how you feel, but whatever.
I mean, if it's not 5 stars, then
we'll find you.
Tell us for where you are. Yeah. No, seriously, appreciate all the listeners out there. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's make this an awesome 2022 and success for your health, your family, your life, your energy, the goals that you want to accomplish. Let's make this the successful year for you and for what you do. And yes, we've all had past failures. We've failed a lot. Let's make this a successful one because we're putting the right things in place.
Just because you failed before doesn't mean you're a failure. See you next week.
See you next week.